In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the 2007 film American Gangster. So let's dive right into American Gangster. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub cast. American Gangster was released on October 19th, 2007. The genre is a biographical crime film. The runtime is 2 hours and 37 minutes. The budget was $100 million. The director is Ridley Scott. His movies that I've seen before are Gladiator, great movie, and Black Hawk Down, another great movie. I need to go see Gladiator 2. I've heard mixed reviews, but I would definitely want to see it. So this movie stars Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Cuba Gooding Jr., Josh Brolin, Ted Levine, Armand Asante, John Ortiz, John Hawkes, and RZA. So let's dive right in as usual. I'll give my overall review for the movie, give it a score, compare that score amongst other scores that we've reviewed so far on the Dubcast, then break into my thoughts and reactions as things occurred throughout the film. So once again, this was another plane film, so not as in-depth notes as usual. Was feeling much better on this plane ride home, though, than my last review. Just was coming back from a cruise, so that was all good. I had to eat some BK in the middle of it, middle day flights and all. But this was a good movie. I really did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed seeing this story where, I was never privy to this, of the heroin drug trade in New York in the whatever century that was, but we get three different perspectives on it. I didn't know this was a major historical event either. So you had the innocent cop, who's Russell Crowe, who was trying to do the right thing, the cop who does the wrong thing, Josh Brolin, taking money and is immoral, and then you have the kingpin behind it all, Frank Lucas, aka Denzel Washington. I think this movie kind of gave me a mix of The Wire and Narcos vibes, with the way that Frank Lucas was portrayed. He kind of ends up being a better person than Avon Barksdale and Pablo Escobar, but I don't know, he kind of was in that anti-hero / villain role. I thought this was definitely fantastic acting from Denzel Washington. After watching this in Training Day, I got to start watching all the Denzel Washington movies. I have a couple more on my list, but I might just go on a Denzel train of just watching a lot of Denzel movies because he's a damn good actor. Josh Brolin did wonderful in this movie as well. I don't know why I just said wonderful. I didn't even realize it was Josh Brolin through halfway through the movie. I had two flights. First flight, I was talking about this movie to my dad. He's like, Josh Brolin in this movie. I was like, Josh Brolin's in this movie, but then I recognize him. But I think I overall enjoyed Russell Crowe's character the most, maybe because he was the one we're supposed to root for the most, obviously trying to do the right thing, and was the most moral. I think the ending did fall a little bit flat for me, but they did have to base it off a true story, but the ending felt a little bit rushed and not the most well established, especially Frank Lucas's turn at the end. I think the side characters were great in their smaller arcs, like Frank Lucas's mom, the whole breakdown of Richie's character and his wife, and how he essentially had to give up on his kid to pursue this case and pursuing Frank Lucas and that whole drug trade. I thought this was definitely a captivating film. I would recommend this to people who enjoy based on true story movies, learning about the drug trade, historical events, and a lot of decent action in this movie as well. Crime movie too. So all around, I think it was a pretty solid movie. I'm giving it an 8.1. I just thought it was a solid movie. Definitely deserves an 8. I think a lot of people are higher on this movie than I am. I just couldn't give it much past an 8.1. I did enjoy it though. I do like Denzel in this movie a lot. But I don't know, just looking back and overall, I think it was maybe a little bit too long, not to throw that trope back in there again. But yeah, 8.1 seems like a decent score to me. So where this comes in on the Dubcast list, it ranks number 16 of 38, barely cracking the top half of the list. Crazy to think we are on movie number 38 now. So this at an 8.1 ties with the movie 300. I think I would put 300 slightly over this movie if it came down to it. Just thought that was more intriguing, more compact storytelling. Just more intense as well, which I like. So comparing this to other actors' movies, in this movie we have Denzel. I gave Training Day a 9.1, so this comes in a whole point lower than that. I thought this was better than 310 to Yuma, which is a Russell Crowe movie. I believe that was around a 7.9, and this is lower than both of Josh Brolin's Dune movies. Obviously, he's not really a main. I mean, he's kind of the same in this movie as he is in Dune, though. But I like both Dune movies better than this. So where this compares amongst similar genre, obviously mentioned Training Day is a 9.1. I got this higher than The Gentleman by zero point 0.2 points, higher than The Guilty by, I believe, the same amount of points. The Little Things was 7.6, and Molly's Game was also 7.6 or 7.4, one of those two, uh, which also contains Idris Elba, who was in this movie for a little bit. But so yeah, that's what we'll wrap up with the Dubcast graphic. What would your guys' score be? What do you think of this graphic overall? Like 38 movies, it's crazy. Some of it's cut off. You can't even see it. I know, but I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out a new graphic someday because we're getting close to 50 movies, which is absurd to say. Anyways, so now let's dive into my thoughts and reactions throughout the film. So, as my loyal viewers know, I like to always note something about the intro. So, we have an introduction of a man speaking Spanish. He's just burned alive. And this doesn't even come up again. Like, I feel like I'm going insane when I talk about these intros to the movies because here you have this man talking in Spanish and he just burnt alive. And it's like, okay, like, we never hear anyone speak in Spanish again throughout the movie unless I'm forgetting something. And this never even is mentioned in the movie, but I like it as kind of like a throw you into the fire type intro where you're like, oh shit, shit's going down in this movie, you know? So I'll appreciate it that, but like I mentioned with my last movie that I did, Isle of Dogs, like you kind of forget that the intro even happened throughout the movie, like until I go back and look at my notes. I'm like, that was the intro. It didn't even have anything to do with the movie, but whatever. Anyways, after all the credits and stuff, and we get ready to actually do the movie, we have Bumpy and Frank are hanging out. Bumpy's kind of like this Tony Soprano type, um, but he dies right away. Seemed like he was kind of a boss. I wanted to see more of Bumpy. Maybe we could have got a little bit more background about Frank and Bumpy, but I know that's probably a Bumpy movie or documentary out there, and this is the story of Frank Lucas, so I'm okay with it. But Bumpy seemed like a good guy, just a boss of a character, but had a heart attack in that store, so he's gone. R.I.P. to Bumpy. Um, so yeah, we start with Russell Crowe's character as well, which I was at the beginning of this movie I was really confused on where the story was going. Like we had Frank, and then he just Bumpy dies, and that's it. And then we're moving to Russell Crowe. Like I had no idea. I thought this was mostly just a Denzel Washington movie. Well, duh, there's two people on the cover of the movie. This is a Russell Crowe movie as well. So we have two cops. They find a bunch of money. One of them's Russell Crowe. They need to, well, they're serving warrants, kind of doing the rookie stuff, like going around and giving warrants out, chasing people down on the street. But they find this accountant, so they find a bunch of money on him. So they decide to turn in the $1 million that he has, which can make them a target amongst the cops. Now, the NYPD is fucked, bro, because everyone's in the bag. It's crazy because you have Josh Brolin's group, but like everyone in the thing like makes fun of them for doing this. They're like, why would you do this? I'm sure this money was taken right after this. Like somebody took advantage of this. Just crazy work. It's tough because you're like, if your moral sense is like, I gotta turn in this money, like let's make a case, you know. But if everyone around you is doing it, you know, you don't want to be that one guy. But props to Russell Crowe's character. He's the one guy, Richie, he's the one guy who actually does the right thing and turns in the money. So this is just the first shoe to drop, and Richie just doing the right thing over and over again. So we learn a little bit more about the corruption with the police. So they have a scam where they'll just take coke, make it worse, then redistribute it and reap the profits. Honestly, like all ethics aside, that's a pretty good scam. I think that's probably done by drug dealers at this point. I mean, I'm sure that's been a tried and true scam. We kind of see that happen in The Wire. I think that was in one of the seasons. I watched The Wire a while ago, but it seems like it's just corrupt to the core. And you know, as I mentioned before, this is really like an eye-opening experience because I didn't know any of this stuff was going on in the 70s and 80s or whatever this was. So this is like a good historical watch too, but just a classic scam system anyways. So Frank wants to get in on the heroin. He's taking over for Bumpy. Seems like Bumpy had, a good percentage of the market, but he wasn't anything crazy. He wasn't a kingpin. Frank was his right hand man, but they were never like, they're kind of like one of those lower crews or middle crews of, they're not like kingpins of this or whatever. So Frank hears about this heroin that's coming over from Vietnam. It's total pure. And then he has a disagreement with Tango over 20%, who's Idris Elba, which leads to one of the best scenes in the movie, in my opinion. Maybe actually probably the best scene in the movie. So to be honest, I didn't really understand what the dispute over the 20% was. Maybe he was just had to kick up 20% to Tango. That's what I'm gonna guess it was. But yeah, so Frank makes a huge purchase of Vietnam heroin through his cousin who's in the force over there. It's funny to see Denzel Washington just visit Vietnam in like a military outfit, and he's just there to buy a bunch of heroin, and it's just like the military is corrupt too because they're just like letting him do it. His cousin's like pushing this operation, but um, Richie. We flash back to Richie. His partner gets in trouble. He shoots somebody, and then Richie saves him. Turns out his partner's a junkie. He killed the guy in a robbery gone wrong. He was just becoming a scum cop like everybody else. And we had two different versions where at the beginning of the movie we saw them with the money. Richie's like, we gotta turn this in, bro, and his partner's like, we ain't turning this in. We gotta, we're gonna become targets, whatever. Flash forward a couple minutes. Now this guy's robbing people for heroin and killing people. Richie does a good job settling the situation down. He's like, we gotta like leave you on a stretcher. He's alive. Blah blah blah. They're in like the projects, whatever. But yeah, what a crazy twist that this guy's all of a sudden just a junkie. So he he dives out of the ambulance. We don't see him. He comes up dead. Um, we see a little bit of Norman Reedus as a detective in this movie, which I was like hype because I was like, Norman Reedus is in nothing besides that video game that I haven't played. So it'd be cool to see him do like a side role as a detective, but he literally just has a couple lines. So considering this was 2007, maybe this was before. I mean, this was before his big break in The Walking Dead. But I was hoping we'd see a little bit more Daryl Dixon, aka Norman Reedus, but no go. He's just in this one scene. So that had me hyped up for nothing. Now, instead of pushing warrants on the street, he gets a good job for FBI leading the narcotics division, Richie, picking his guys and taking it seriously. He's been recognized for turning in that money. His partner's dead, so they know he's a legit guy. He was probably the one pushing that narrative to bring in the money, be respectful about it, take the right moral path, so that he's handpicked for this leading the narcotics job. And my only leap of faith here is, why are we picking a guy off the street? I guess if he has the good moral code, they kind of entrust him with that too, and they tell him the guys to pick. They're like, you're gonna know the guys that are gonna do anything for you, and like you can't have one person on your team who's gonna sell out information or whatever. So props to them for finding the right guy, because if this is based off a true story, I mean, it's probably loosely based off a true story, but if Richie's out there somewhere, I mean, Richie is out there somewhere, but they picked the right guy picking Richie off the street. He ends up leading this operation. I mean, we'll get to the end of the movie, but good job there. So back to Frank. He's making money pretty fast. He's got this pure heroin. I mean, we've seen it in Breaking Bad and The Wire, where if your product is better, they will pay more and you'll become rich very quickly. There's no monopolies, no ban on monopolies in the drug trade. So he buys his family a house. He moves them out of North Carolina in New York. I had a lot of respect for Frank. I don't even know if Frank's an anti-hero, because I think we're supposed to kind of root for Frank. It's Denzel Washington. He's just a good guy. Just is in the wrong business, kind of like a Stringer Bell type. Anyways, so he buys his family a massive house, moves them out in New York. Now they're going to join the crew, bringing them into the business. So right away, this is my favorite scene in the movie. I think this is a lot of people's favorite scene in the movie if they've watched this movie. So you bring in the family, like, we're going to the city today. We're going to go have go have lunch at a diner. Frank frequents this diner, it seems like. So he has a plate. He pours out the salt on the plate. He says, in this town, you're either somebody or you're nobody. And then he sees Tango walking down the street collecting his dues from people on the side of the street, probably drug money, whatever, kicking up the 20%. So he just goes up to Tango and points the gun right at his head and is like, you want your 20%, bro? Tango's like, yeah, give me my 20% in the jar. You got the jar. You ain't going to pull the trigger. Boom. Just kills him right in the middle of everybody, which is a absurd scene. Like, that just shows you how corrupt the NYPD were, that no one even wanted to bother to arrest him at the time. But one of the best scenes in the movie, he just pulls up to Idris Elba, just bang. So that was a cool scene for sure. So yeah, seemed like me to be a pretty simple murder charge. A lot of witnesses around, but it's New York, it's corrupt. Whatever, the NYPD, I don't, no comment on that. I think they might still be corrupt. I've heard rumors, but anyways, um, we get more people in the family now joining the business. Everyone's kind of having a good time out at the club. Frank takes note of this, and then his brother especially is like doing a bunch of weird shit, dancing around, whatever. And this isn't gonna be the first time that Frank has a problem with a family member, but he's taking notes of what everyone's doing at the club. Confronts his brother about something he did. I forget exactly what he did. Maybe he was dancing with the wrong girl or just being a little too drunk. But Frank's making sure, keeping an eye out for his family. He's still not made it so big yet that he's letting it's the operation run itself. He's keeping an eye on it, hand to hand. And, he's like, dude, you gotta be better. You can't just do that shit. So Frank, is ship shape. He's got this operation running to a T. So Richie, meanwhile, is on a side quest where he plants dollar bills in the drug trade, does a fake buy or whatever, and he's going to follow that money where it goes. So he sees the suitcase, the briefcase, I think it's like $100K they give him of fake money. So he follows it back. He's in New Jersey at the moment. So the money goes back from New Jersey into the city, into the hand of 5 police officers. And this is where we meet Josh Brolin. And yeah, it's crooked police where this money is kicking up to. So Richie learns really quick that, this is a union type thing. Like you're facing off against a lot more people than you thought you were. You're facing off against basically a lot of the police force in New York City. And the people in New York City are not very welcoming to him. They're like, what are you doing around here? You're like, not, and they're not even being as nice as I'm being. They're like, dude, get out of here. You're taking our money and you don't want to be seen around here again. And luckily for Richie, the bills were marked, so that probably scared him out of it a little bit. But you can't really stop a corruption ring if it's the police. Like, it's hard to do. Hint to the end of the movie. So we have another party with Frank back at his massive crib. So he's got this cousin who's going a little crazy, gets into a little dispute, shoots a cop. It might have been accidental, but it might have just been a dispute. So Frank bashes his head in with a piano and tightens up his security. Yeah, this is where you have the Pablo is a good guy, Avon's a good guy, then one thing happens and it's kind of like, but it's also like he's keeping his family in order. Like, you can't have this shit happen if everything just did what they want, and it's kind of like a Narcos Mexico. I'm just pulling random fucking references out of the air. If it's like a Narcos Mexico situation where people are just doing whatever the fuck they want, like that ends in disaster for everybody. You have disorganization all the way around. So I think despite his actions, like bashing your cousin's head in with a piano is crazy, but you have to keep some sort of order, some sort of level of leadership. So I understand where he's coming from. Anyways, so we have this cool scene that is a dual perspective. So you have both of them listening to the radio, both Richie and Frank, our main characters. They're both listening about the Muhammad Ali fight on the radio. So I thought that was really cool, kind of seeing both their perspectives at the time of listening to the Ali fight on the radio. Frank proposes super nonchalantly to Eva, who we haven't mentioned so far, which, looking back on it, the way he meets Eva is just saying, how you doing? And then that's it, bro. If it's that simple, why am I not married with kids yet? Like, damn, I wish it was the 70s and like you could just say, how you doing? And then all of a sudden a girl's into you. But she was into him, so I'm exaggerating it a little bit. But Eva's this nice girl. I believe she's a little bit foreign. But yeah, his proposal, just pretty chill, pretty frank. Like, let's get married and we're going to do it. So they're going to have the wedding, and the cops pull over Frank on his wedding day. It's special investigations, the same people who Richie followed with the money, Josh Brolin and his crew. So Frank burns the coat that Eva got him. A little backstory on that, just a nice gift. I really think you're looking good in this coat. He's like, I don't think so, blah, blah, blah. Wears it to the fight. That's where he got made at the fight, because people are like, who's this guy in the coat in the second row talking to Muhammad Ali before the fight? So Frank gets really shook up here after this interaction with the police, and he burns the coat that Eva got him due to that being the part that made him in front of the cops. Eva's not happy. Eva kind of just had it like the middle of the story. She was good, everything was good, and understandably so. She just plummets because shit just starts to hit the fan really quickly. So we have more escalation between Frank and Trupo. Trupo being Josh Brolin. Frank had his car blown up. Trupo, and then he is stopped in the city by their unit, and their unit beats up his brother. So just back and forth, like corruption to the highest degree. This is like some, I'm not going to keep making references, but just it's escalating. You can tell that we're pretty deep into the movie at this point. Things are kind of tipping where it's like one wrong move could be an all-out war between both these groups. So we have Richie. He's been on still doing his thing, slowly chipping away at this narcotics case in New York City. He's approached by his friend Joey. His friend Joey is a little bit mob connected. They're friends from high school. This was the one thing that the police were actually hesitant on about Richie, because he was hanging out with these these suspect characters that were in the drug trade, have big houses and just do load management, that type of stuff. So one of those is Joey, still plays baseball with him. But Joey is kind of like, has a weird interaction with him. He's like, hey, you should like stop going after Frank Lucas, and I can buy you a boat and a vacation and your kids, and you'll never have to worry about it again. Which I haven't brought up the kid thing, but Richie's basically just losing custody slowly throughout this movie, because he's getting so far into the case, which I think is a common occurrence with both crime films and just actually what happens. But Richie is with the heart of gold, does not go with Joey and does not take his deal. He realizes that Frank Lucas is at the top of everything if they're trying to get him to stop looking into Frank Lucas. So the people who wanted to make this stop actually did the opposite thing of what they wanted to have happen, because now they realize Frank's at the top. So now they put Frank at the top of the picture, like the target picture, and with all the organizations, whatever, classic movie stuff. But yeah, so now it's Frank Lucas is the main focus of Richie's investigation. So Richie gets served child papers to appear in court. He is emotionally going through it. He really wants to see his kid, but after this, he kind of realizes, it's all or nothing. I got to solve this case before I can be a good father. He's not going to be the best father moving forward. Drops the child support case, lets his former wife / baby mama have the kid for now. She's going to move out to Cali. And yeah, in New York City, it is not looking good, but I don't know what Cali was looking like in this time period. But anyways, Richie is all set with that. So we have the escalation continues as there's an assassination attempt made on Frank and Eva. They narrowly escaped diving behind the car, which Frank was like going into a convenience store to get something, which it's tough being famous, and also I guess just famous overall, because if you try and do something normal, like just go into a convenience store by yourself, that could be it for you. I mean, I don't know if the assassination forces knew that Frank would be by himself or with his Eva. You're not supposed to kill people in front of their family according to old mob rules. Anyways, barely escape it. Frank sees what's happening, dives behind the car. It was kind of like a drive-by thing, so they're able to make it out for now. So Frank is a little bit upset after this, obviously tweaking. Someone just tried to take his life, and he doesn't know who it was, so he's, kind of freaking out. So the war ends in Vietnam now. So this is kind of the peak of the story, really, because now with the war ending in Vietnam, they no longer have the connection to the pure H, as they call it on the street. So the supplies in question, Frank is going to go alone again to try and reap as much as he can from it, and also just figure out where his supply is going to come from moving forward. Not much luck, though. The guy's like, yeah, we're closing down shop. We're done. Like, the war's over. We can't have this factory anymore. So we have what really gives up Frank at the end is his brother. So never do business with your family. I know it's very tempting when you make it to bring in everybody into the business, but give him like small roles, because now his brother is one of the top people in the business, and he has a falling out with a female, shoots her in the street. Richie is obviously following him. They're kind of wiretapping him, pseudo tapping like 40 or 30 years in advance. They don't really have that technology yet, but they're kind of just following him around, seeing what they're doing. So they see Richie's brother shoots a woman in the street. So now they have him on attempted murder if they want to. So it's either go to jail, give everything up, or wear a wire, and then we can start putting the pieces together. So now it's the wire. Now we have the wire going. Richie basically won because this brother, no one knows he's wearing a wire. So him walking around talking to people, etc. You know how a wire works. So the warrants are served after they got the brother talking about the plane. This was a funny scene where the plane's coming in from Vietnam. Frank obviously trying to bring in his last couple shipments from Vietnam of heroin. Richie is searching the plane. Trupo searches the house. Saddest scene in the movie where obviously Frank has a getaway stash because every gangster has a getaway stash apparently. He put it under the doghouse, so you have the dog is barking because it's just a dog who sees people who they don't like or know. So they're barking as their heads off at one of Josh Brolin's guys, kind of scaring away, keeping it off the doghouse. Josh Brolin tears the house apart, can't find the safe house money, and obviously Josh Brolin's character Trupo would want the safe house money and take it because he's scum and a bad moral person. So he sees the dog protecting the money, or what he thinks could possibly be the money. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know if it's the money. But no, shoots the dog. So fucked up, man. Trupo got what he deserved. I hope he feels awful about that, or he felt awful about that. You're shooting a dog. What do we? I hope that's not even part of the story. I hope that was included for exaggeration because that was fucked up. That's where I draw the line. So the money's under the doghouse. Trupo gets it. The scheme that Frank was running was putting the heroin in coffins, coming in tombs. It's coffins, coming over from Vietnam. So it's like we're not going to look in these people's tombs. That's fucked up. And Richie actually wants to look into one of the tombs and does, and finds a dead body. And the military people are like they're pissed off. Fair, because they don't know what's actually going on. They just think people are ripping up tombs of dead soldiers, and all respect to the military, that is fucked up. Unless you have a super insane hunch, what they did. So it was just kind of a weird situation, a funny situation to watch play out. Anyways, so Frank's back at home. His mom warns him not to shoot the cops or she will be done with him. And yeah, I don't think Frank was ever going to shoot the cops. I think they should have just used the getaway money and got away to Europe. I think that's the key for all these drug lords that missed out. You just move away and be done with it. But easier said than done when you're on top. I know that. So the warrants in the project towers go crazy. A lot of Frank's men are shot. We have, kind of where they were doing most of they had this room where they were making the heroin, making it so people could consume it, whatever. Naked woman, because you don't want them to steal anything or whatever. That was just funny and annoying to watch on a plane where there's kids around. You just have a scene with just women walking around naked. Anyways, they are serving warrants in this project tower because they know eventually that's where the heroin's going to get made. A lot of Frank's men are shot. They have the whole police force there, or the whole narcotics division, which has grown and grown, chasing after Frank's men. A lot of them run away because running away is what you do, I guess. But a lot of them are shot and killed. So Richie rounds up everybody in that tower and then makes his way to Frank, who's at church with his mom. Rounds up him and the rest of his crew. So seemingly it's over for Richie. Over for Richie too, but over for Frank. The empire is done. They found his stash house. They found his stash. They have everything on him. The getaway's money is gone. He's going to be going to jail for a long time. So Richie and Frank have a one-on-one conversation at the end. Frank tries to bribe him last minute, brings up the story. I can make you an offer you can't refuse. I know you turned down money from the police or turned it in. I can't believe you did that. And that's kind of the running tale of Richie's character, the rumor around him that makes everyone respect him. So both are just telling about each other about their strategies for the proceedings. So far Richie hasn't folded the money. I thought maybe he would fold to the money, but I'm glad he didn't. Obviously, just sticking true to his character. I should have seen that coming, but I thought it was interesting that they told him to about what they were going to do in the proceedings. I know court is court and anything can really happen, but interesting to tell your strategy. So Richie, what he wants is the policeman behind the bribes and the drug money, the corrupt police officers. Frank is down for that if he gets a prison deal. So they're going to do it. They round up all the police officers. Frank sings like a canary, gives up all the police officers. He's not going to go to prison for life anymore. I don't think Frank directly, the only person I can think he directly killed was Tango. Maybe I'm missing somebody, maybe his cousin. I don't know if his cousin actually died or not, but Richie gets all the names of the corrupt police officers. So Richie's a hero, to the mega degree, pulled in Frank and then got Frank to tell about the corrupt police force, so uncorrupted the police force, pulled H off the street. Like, what a job by the true Richie out there. And Russell Crowe's character was awesome as well. Frank also too for being a good guy at the end of it. I don't think he's a crazy villain. Like, I don't think he's off the haywire. I don't even think he's as bad as. I'm not with the comparisons. I don't know why I keep saying that. Anyways, Frank was a good guy at the end. Tells him about all the police officers. They're gonna go round up Trupo. Trupo killed himself. If he actually shot that dog, fuck him, but also fuck him because he was a dick through the whole movie, and he was a corrupt police officer who took the easy way out instead of paying the ultimate crime that he should have paid and I don't know what I'm trying to say, but fuck Trupo. I think we're all in on that. So 3/4 of the DEA were on the take. They find out, nice little credit roll at the end. That's shocking, man, because you expect those people are the people who are pursuing, but it's a cycle of corruption where they get brought into it, and then they bring in their guys, and it's like 75% of the DA are in it. We're not even fucking pursuing cases. We're just making money off this, which was a crazy thing for the biggest city in the world too, the best city in the world to some people out there. Absurd. But Richie got it done. No more corrupt police. At least, I have sources that say the NYPD don't do anything. I don't live in New York City, so I can't testify. Maybe if some of you guys live in New York City, you can tell me about that. But to end it all out, I think this might have been an end credit scene, or I might have missed the post-credit scene, but Frank gets out of prison and is ready to live his life. I think Eva's still alive. His mother may be still alive. I don't know how long he served. I forget. They might have wrote it on the end scrolls, but brilliant story. Portrayed pretty well. I think it could have been done better, a little bit better, just in my opinion, but still a pretty solid movie, given an 8.1. So am I too high? Am I too low on it? What would you guys think of this? Or what did you guys think of this movie if you watched it? If not, go check it out. Definitely worth a watch. Love Denzel Washington. Love Russell Crowe. Both moved up my actor ranking list. Honestly, this is a pretty good movie for both of them. So that'll do it for American Gangster. Another movie review in the books. So leave a like, leave a comment, leave a dislike. Videos coming up next. We got 1917 movie release in 2019, so that'll be a weird one to write out a title for, but that's what we'll be reviewing next. Other than that, more shows hopefully coming soon. I was looking at the spring list, and it's going to be a crazy couple months because I'm going to be watching Traitors and Amazing Race. I won't be podcasting about it. Don't worry, you don't have to sit through that. Survivor will be back for Survivor. White Lotus. Last of Us is coming out, I guess, at some point. I need to watch that trailer, but it's like I'm over my head with shows, but I'm getting back in the show grind after football is over, which is only a month away. Speaking of football, weekly streams, me, Cam, and Mikey breaking down every week's action, making our predictions for the next week. Been having a ton of fun with that. By the time this video comes out, it might be time for UFC 311. May have something in the works for that, may not. Filming these movie reviews pretty far in advance now. We're ahead of time, so that's good always. But yeah, would appreciate you subscribe, stick along for the journey. If not, all good. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, be easy.